Hello and welcome to Fit Life Radio, the place where you can learn a little bit more about how your body works and find new ways to improve your health. I'm your host Petju, and I hope to provide you with as much valuable information and inspire you to become a better version of yourself. Mic check. Let's get started. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the third episode of Fit Life Radio. As you know, the first one it was titled The 5 Pillars of Fit Life, and we discussed the 5 very important aspects about fit life. Not the most important aspects, but as I said, the ones that are really worth addressing and the ones that you're going to probably see the most amount of value by addressing them. And in the last episode we covered sleep, so as the title suggested, in this one we're going to cover food. Food is very, very important aspect of our lives. It's very essential, of course, for numerous reasons. One is that food gives us a lot of energy, and without that energy we're simply gonna die. Another reason is that food is it gives us building blocks, which those building blocks are rebuilding our body and makes us live longer in a way. So we're going to discuss all those in today's episode. But first, let's talk about a bit of why we eat, right? So well, of course, one of the aspects of food is taste, and every culture has kind of developed and followed very traditional recipes which are kind of related to certain customs or traditions and stuff like that. So for instance, around Christmas every culture has different sort of meals or different dishes that are prepared for whatever reasons. Another great example I can give you is like the birthday party. So yeah, cake might not be the best nutrient-dense food ever, but we all associate birthday party with a cake. Like there's just gotta be a birthday cake at a party. It's not a real birthday party without a cake, and we do associate it with this taste. Like we know how a birthday cake tastes like. So taste is very, very huge aspect of food. And of course we've learned to manipulate it throughout the years, and of course we learned to use it as some sort of drug, if I can say so. But that's more on that on another episode. Like today I just kind of want to focus on more briefly on those, to mention more briefly those stuff. So yeah, the first aspect of food is taste, but it's not only taste. Like food just gives us energy, and like the thing is, if you compare yourself as a car, like that car is gonna need energy, but like you start the car and you start driving, and whenever you start the engine, the car starts to consume energy. It starts to consume fuel. Right. Well, we need energy in order to move and breathe and digest food and do all the stuff that we normally do. But the difference is that we never actually turn off our engines. Like our engines is always on. It's like if a car is on the parking somewhere and the engine is turned on, right? So it's constantly going to consume energy, it's going to consume fuel. So we are the same. Like our engine is constantly turned on and it's constantly working, and it's constantly using energy. So this energy for us has to come from food. There's no other way, and food is actually great for that. Like we need calories to move, and food is the only source of those calories. So it's pretty important. However, um, energy is not everything. Like, again, if we compare ourselves to a car, yes, the car is gonna need fuel, let's say petrol, but what's gonna happen if you don't change the oil often? What's gonna happen if you don't put coolant? What's gonna happen if you put poor quality petrol? Well, the car is not gonna be able to perform as well, right? So it's pretty much the same with us. Like, yes, food is an energy, but it's very important from what sources we get that energy. So, for me, food is also a building blocks. And what I mean by building blocks, right? So, we're metabolically active, and whenever we move, like we damage a bit our tissues. We kind of wear off muscles, ligaments. We use resources that we have stored. So the food's job is to provide us back with those resources, with those building blocks. It's like it's like a house that needs bricks and needs cement and needs glue for its joints to be built. Difference is that we as humans, like, we always kind of like damage slightly this house, and the food is gonna replenish. Like, food is gonna provide us back with the materials that we need to rebuild again or to maintain the structure of the house. So, like, yeah, taste is quite important, and energy is the most important, but the building blocks or the information that food gives us, like the the materials that food gives us, it's probably one of the most important stuff when it comes to food. And it feels like today we're kind of forgetting this, or we're not aware of that. So we're not looking for food that is going to nourish our needs. We're just looking for food that tastes great and food that's going to give us energy. And unfortunately, we don't realize that we are getting a little bit too much energy from the food, more than we need, and that ends up stored as fats, unfortunately. So it's pretty important to kind of address a lot of those stuff, because in my opinion, food is one of the biggest contributors to unhealthy society. Not because we eat, but because we don't know how and what to eat. Because well, if we know how to nourish our body, we're gonna live more quality lifestyle. But in fact, if we just look at food as taste or as a source of energy, we like soon we're gonna end up with more energy than we consume or we need, and we're gonna just end up sick and kind of very unhealthy. And that's really not a great place to be, in my opinion, because well, at, at the end of the day, like, we need to somehow contribute to the world, and healthy individuals can contribute to the world to become a better place. If we're unhealthy, we're going to continue to consume more and more, like medicines, if you wish, or services or whatever. So we're not actually going to contribute to anything else rather than ourselves to become even worse. And I think it's worth stressing it, because well, it can be changed, it can be reversed, and of course, food is not gonna end up curing all the diseases around the world, but it's a good start to ensure that we are generally healthy. And if we're generally healthy, we're not going to end up as sick as we might be. Um, so, anyway, in this episode, I also want to talk about the macronutrients, or basically what food consists of, because I think it's very important for us to understand a little bit more what we eat and why we should actually really be mindful of what we put in our mouth, because as I said before, like if we don't understand what food is, we're just gonna look for the taste, and taste is not always related to quality of food or nutrients. So anyway, let's focus on this. So macronutrients are proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and I also like to separate the fibers out of the equation, and kind of like think of them as a fourth macronutrient, even though they're carbs at the end of the day. But I think it's a better approach to separate them, and you will see why. So let's start with the first and very important one, protein. So right, as I mentioned, as we like do whatever pretty much in our daily life, we end up kind of damaging or breaking down tissue. The role of protein, one of the roles actually of the protein, is to rebuild that damaged tissue. It's You can think of it as the building blocks of ligaments or muscles. In fact, also nails, skin, hair. These are all kind of built by proteins, and it's pretty important to consume a sufficient amount of protein in order to ensure that those tissues are rebuilt properly. Another interesting part about protein is that it's not only responsible for rebuilding damaged tissue. Actually, every time you inhale, you need oxygen. Like your lungs are filtering basically the air, and they're taking the oxygen and they're distributing it around the different parts of our body, because we do need oxygen in order to survive. Interesting part is that protein actually carries that oxygen around the body. So again, another good reason to consume sufficient amount of protein. Also, protein is responsible for the replication of the DNA, which is another important aspect. As we know, the DNA is the genetic code, which is responsible for a lot of stuff in our body, for a lot of processes in our body. So that the replication of DNA, it's something very important. I'm not gonna go very in depth about this, not at all actually. If you want to learn more, just simply Google it. Like, my point is to just highlight how important is protein in the body, and how important is to actually get it from quality sources. And this reminds me of actually since it's very important to kind of mention from which sources is the best to get protein. Now, before that, I want to stress that protein actually can be further broken down to amino acids, and those amino acids are 20, and actually 9 of those are considered essential. What does that mean? That means that 9 of those amino acids are not produced from our body, which means that we have to take them from outside. We have to consume them somehow with the food. So sources of protein are mostly animal products, meat, dairy, eggs, but also sources of protein are nuts, legumes. Of course, if you're vegetarian or vegan, of course you're not gonna die because there's not enough protein in your diet. I want to stress here the fact that those 9 essential amino acids that we talked about, that have to be obtained with food, they're pretty hard to be found uh, in non-animal sources. So in other words, if you're vegan, I highly suggest that you really approach it very carefully and like have different sources of plant-based protein in your diet, because um, the thing is, like, if one steak, for example, can give you all the important amino acids that you need, um, maybe you will have to take like 3 or 4 different sources of non-animal based protein to get all that essential amino acids. So I highly urge you to be really cautious and to really research better, especially when you're on the vegan diet, because it's very common when people decide to go vegan, they just switch and they don't have much of an understanding of how they should actually eat, so they end up with a lot of nutrient deficiencies, just because like being vegan doesn't mean that you should eat tomatoes and cucumbers all day long, right? Like being vegan just means simply that you don't eat animal products, and you respect that, and I respect that as well. But it's very important that you stay healthy and that you get all those important nutrients in your body. So like be really cautious about that. The second macronutrient that we're going to talk about today, it's fats. Now, believe it or not, fats are actually very essential for our body. In most living beings, fats are important for energy storage, waterproofing, thermal isolation, and actually one of the biggest usage of fats is the energy storage. You can see like fat as the insurance policy of our body. So like if our body sees that there is not much if our body sees that there is a lot of energy that is coming out but we don't manage to consume it, that energy is going to be stored just in case. But on the other hand, if we don't consume enough calories or enough energy and we burn more, our body is still going to try to convert some of that energy into fats, just in case we have kind of like energy storage for the future. So it's pretty interesting facts, but yeah, this is it. Another application of fats are that fats are important for digestion and absorption of some vitamins. Those vitamins are called fat soluble. So in other words, for instance, the vitamin A, D, E, and K, they cannot be absorbed and transported throughout the body without the presence of fats. So if we lack fats basically in our diet, we might not be able to absorb a lot of the vitamins that we need. And I mean, we do need our vitamins for just a sufficient healthy living. So another interesting thing is that the hormone leptin, which is the hunger inhibitor, it's secreted by fat tissues. So like again, if we don't have enough fats in our diet, we're just like the hunger hormones, or we're not going to be basically able to truly say if we're hungry or not, because our hormones are not going to be produced correctly. So that being said, like fats, again, you can see that are pretty important. However, why fats are demonized for some reason? Like why we've been told for so long that fats are related to a lot of coronary diseases and just diseases in general, and we should kind of like avoid the consumption of fats. Well, fats, they can be divided to unsaturated and saturated fats. Unsaturated are the monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. These are basically the liquid fats, the liquid at the room temperature. These are the oils and the trans fats as well. And the saturated are more the solid fats, which are like your butter or the lard from the animal sources. The thing is, um, I do think that fats are super important for our body, especially like essential fatty acids such as omega-3, 6. However, of course, we shouldn't only think that fats are the most important. And like, I mean, my point is that there are a lot of different diets kind of these days which are saying like, oh, we should eat low carb, we shouldn't eat carbs, or yeah, we should eat a lot of fats. Well, we need to be cautious. Like, we need to find the way how our body like where our body likes to stay, um, and kind of like approach it this way. However, I do believe that fats are very, very important for us, and we do need to take them from with the food. But how do we know what is like a good source of fat? So, um, in my opinion, or the way I like to approach it is like I like to obtain fats mostly from animal sources because I do eat meat. And if I don't have any meat, or um, there is not, like, it's more lean meat kind of without much fats, I use olive oil. I also use coconut oil. I use butter. Eggs are a pretty good source of fats as well. Fish, like fish products, they're super like rich in omega-3 and 6 fatty acids. Um, I like to avoid the oils, the refined oils or margarine, just because those are, like, some of them are kind of synthetically refined, and that's not very great, especially the palm oil. Like, the palm oil is mostly used in the fast food industry because it's of I mean, it's super easy, it's super cheap, it's super easy to store, it's not gonna go bad over time. So of course it's a perfect way to make money, basically, to save money from cooking food. So my suggestion is just to use natural fats, to not worry much about consuming fats, but to get fat-rich sources. And usually those, like the protein sources, are usually very rich in the good fats. Or in terms of like oils, I highly suggest just like using olive oil or coconut oil if you want to cook something. Of course, sunflower oil is not too bad, but again, it's partially refined, so I would suggest to kind of stay away from it. Anyway, moving forward, the next one is carbohydrates. Right, so do you know what are carbohydrates? Sugars. That's it. Carbs are simply sugars or saccharides. Not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but yeah, saccharide. Just sugars, and they do provide us with energy and some fibers as well. Well, the food industry is very packed with carbs, just because when we talked about taste, I kind of mentioned that the food industry is like has found ways to kind of trick us or trick our taste receptors in order for us to consume more food, basically. The fast food industry, it's packed of carbs, and this is just sugar. Like, there is no doubt that carbs, they taste good. There's no doubt like sugar tastes good. I mean, it's sweet, it's nice. Uh, mm, Cakes are nice. Any sort of like sweets or stuff, they taste nice, right? It's just like, of course, anybody would prefer to eat a piece of cake than just I don't know, like a piece of meat. Depends, but my point is that it does taste great. But the problem is that carbs are just source of energy, and we need to be very aware how we use that energy, because we do need the energy at the end of the day. However, fats are one of the more available macronutrients, if I can say so, and also one of the more engineered as well. So um, it's kind of easy to overconsume it, and therefore it's easy to consume more energy that we need. So if I give you an example, like if you eat two steaks, like after 3-4 hours, you're probably still not gonna be hungry and you won't be able to eat as much. However, if you eat two pieces of chocolate cake, after 2 or 3 hours, I'm pretty sure that you would be able to eat again at least a piece of chocolate cake. So you're not gonna feel that full, or that you're gonna feel hungry again. So and just because also they taste great, it's pretty kind of hard to step away from them and to not consume them. Also, carbs are like very highly present in a lot of cultures. Like for instance, I'm living in France now, and of course, one of the famous stuff here is the bakeries, and it's just part of the culture. Like it's part of the culture to have baguette or to have bread with most of the meals. So no judgment. It just needs to be. We like people need to be aware of how much they consume, because it's super easy to overconsume it, as I mentioned, and that's not great for today's society. Mm, so my urge is to look at carbohydrates as pure source of energy, and if you think that you do need more, yes, of course you can have. If you think that you will overconsume too much, kind of step aside and acknowledge that this is just taste, and you do want that chocolate cake because it tastes good, not because it's actually gonna give you anything. So in terms of where to find or maybe we should talk about what to avoid. So try to avoid processed food, and this is most of the packaged food, most of the dessert and snacks. And if you're looking for a good quality of carbohydrates, uh, look at fruits and vegetables, look at potatoes, rice. Bread is not a bad source. It's just easy to overconsume, so just be mindful of that, and that's all. But the thing is, I like to consume carbohydrates in a way of um, fruits and vegetables or grains, just because by consuming this type of carbs, they're gonna give me like other vitamins and minerals that are highly important for my body. So I kind of like kill two birds with one stone, if I can say that. So this is why I think it's maybe a better approach, because it's hard to overconsume vegetables. If I have to be honest, it's hard to overconsume fruits. It's not that hard to overconsume fruits, but you're not gonna eat like 10 apples in a row. So yeah, like this way you're gonna have energy, but you're gonna also get a lot of other important nutrients. And speaking of nutrients, like I mentioned that I like to separate fibers from carbs. um, I do like to do that, because while carbs give us energy, I don't think they're necessarily very important for us, and they can be very oftentimes mistaken with just like, oh yeah, pasta is carbohydrate, bread is carbs, so why not just consuming those? Well, I like to separate them because I do think fibers are more important or are essential for our body because they're important for digestion. Um, Fibers, these are they're not starchy portion of a plant. They cannot be completely broken down by our body, but they're so essential for the optimal function of our gut health. They're essential for digestion. They help also the digestion of other nutrients. So and also they're highly important for the optimal excretion of the food. So I think fibers are one step higher in the importance ladder, um, and carbs are just before that. And yes, carbs are fibers, but you won't find much fibers in bread, for example. But you will find a lot of fibers in like berries or green vegetables or seeds. So um, my recommendation or the way I like to approach it, like I like to prioritize fibers or like vegetables, and this way I also will get part of the carbohydrates that I need. And if I really need more energy, I'm gonna then consume further more complex carbs such as rice or uh, like potatoes or sweet potatoes or some fruits or whatever. But like I like to prioritize fibers just because they're super important for our health, and kind of put less importance of on carbohydrates. So I mentioned fast food industry, and I kind of want to talk a little bit more about it because I feel it's quite important uh, to be aware of what we eat and to be aware of actually what we are bombarded with. Um, since we live in a very modern world, like everything is super accessible. We work 10 hours, 12 hours, like we go home super exhausted. Like we have two kids, we're thinking about like what should we eat now. I need something, I need to cook fast because those kids are hungry and they need to eat something. So uh, oh, we just download a very interesting app that can list all the possible fast food options that we have in the area, and actually, with few clicks, I can have the food in front of my door within like 40 minutes. So why not taking advantage of it? Um, well, I think that could be kind of like a small problem, not because like it's great that it's very accessible, it's great that it's not expensive. The problem is that it's not very good quality. Like processed food is so packed with, like, it's mostly carbs and trans fats, which are very the opposite of healthy. And also those are mm, like they're not only bad for us, but they're not giving us really what we need. It's like there's no much vegetables on the pizza, there's no much fibers in the pizza, there's no much proteins or quality fats on the pizza, there's mostly carbs on that pizza, which is, it tastes great, and in fact it makes us to want more and more, but it doesn't give us much of the quality of the food that we need. It doesn't give us a lot of building blocks that we need, and we slowly end up having digestion issues. So we have slowly end up having nutrient deficiency, and we slowly end up having too much energy, and maybe having like diabetes because we're just like constantly consuming like huge amounts of sugar in our body, and that's quite alarming. So that's why, like, I mean, it's great, but at the same time it's probably one of the biggest contributors to the unhealthy society right now, because just it's just a fact. It's super easy, it's super accessible, but at the same time it's just destroying us. And like you might ask like, oh, but how do you know what stuff are in the processed food? How do you know they contain this kind of stuff? Right, so I'm gonna tell you a story. When I was in the UK, I needed like an extra income. I had a car at that time. I love to listen podcasts as well, so I found a great way to earn a little bit more money while um, just enjoying driving around and listening music and listening podcasts and learning from it. I worked as a delivery driver for a fast food shop, which, by the way, was quite nice because I know it's quite controversial because yeah, personal trainer talking about the importance of food and how fast food industry is destroying us, and he works in the fast food industry. Yes, I know, but that gave me a lot of insights of what actually is happening inside. Thankfully, the owner of the place was super friendly, and I'm pretty curious, so I like to explore and I like to help and I like to learn about how it's made and stuff like that. So we had like I asked so many questions, and the owner was pretty nice. Like he was just giving me all the information, or like he was answering most of my questions. So, for instance, like we had a big fryer where we were frying potatoes. They were real potatoes, but we were frying the potatoes in the palm oil. And I asked, okay, so why do we do that? Like, why do we use palm oil? It's not very good for health. And he said palm oil is the cheapest source of oil that we can find. It doesn't go bad, and it's easy to store. It just people like it. It just tastes good. It gives texture to the food. So why not? And yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why fast food or just food industry in general tries to it doesn't try purposely to make us unhealthy, but it does make us unhealthy because it tries to save as much money as possible while producing something super tasty. So of course they will use palm oil because it's cheap and because it tastes good and because it doesn't go bad. Like, why would they use lard or like pork fat to fry potatoes? Like, my grandma used to use lard to fry potatoes, but she would just fry like 3 potatoes and that's it. It's gonna be enough for me and my brother. But like, if she has to feed, I don't know, like 500 people, of course she would have probably used something cheaper. And another pretty interesting thing that I learned is that the fast food industry, they use something called MSG. This is monosodium glutamate or glutamate. Basically what it is, this is taste enhancer. It's they were referring it to Chinese salt, and it's very interesting. But like when I ask what it is, they just explain it this way. They were like, this is salt, but in fact it's a legal drug that makes people addicted to our food. When we use it, more people want to eat from us, and they also call second time for another delivery. If we don't use it, people are not very they still like the food, but they're not that hungry for it, which was something super interesting for me. And when I researched a little bit more, I was kind of I was kind of shocked because MSG it's everywhere. Honestly, it's like everywhere, like in every in most of the fast food products that you can find, in most of the snacks, in most of the potato chips, and and stuff. And like, no wonder why you can't stop yourself from eating potato chips. Of course, I mean, it's a drug. Can you stop yourself from taking like drug, or I don't know, like smoking cigarette? It's not that easy, because it's just, it makes you want more and more. So this was pretty interesting stuff to learn about, and I think it's very relevant to share it with you, because uh, yes, it does taste good, but you're kind of being tricked to want it more and more and more. And it's not a problem. It's a free market. It's not a problem that you spend your money for food that you like. The problem is that you're really not doing a great service to your body by all the time using this. So um, yeah, like in general, mm, if you look at it from the evolutionary standpoint, like for the past 100 years, the food industry has grown and has changed so much. Uh, or maybe for the past 200 years, but pretty much the same. It's like it has changed so much uh, that it just, our body, they can handle it. Like our body are so complex machines that have been evolving for thousands or millions of years. Like, we cannot evolve that fast. Maybe at some point in the future, not in the near future for sure, we will be able to consume all those products that we do now, and we're not gonna end up like fat, or we're not gonna end up like with the diabetes or any other autoimmune disease. But for now, it's like we cannot evolve that fast. We cannot evolve with the same rate as food industry evolves. So uh, going back to the basics, kind of, or to the whole natural food seems to be the best option for me. Uh, so I highly encourage you to try it. In fact, I know that can be pretty overwhelming. I know that it can be, um, how to say, like, it's not that easy to start eating natural food. It's not that easy to prioritize protein and fats and like carbohydrates, or where do I get, like, what sources are, like, what are good sources of protein, or what are good sources of carbs. Like, I know how would you feel doing it, just like every single new thing. Like, I don't know what example I can give you. Like, let's say, like, I started to do bouldering, like indoor climbing, and of course I'm very interested and I want to do it as fast as possible, and I'm convinced that I'm gonna do it and train for it and get better at it. But if I, like, just read article or listen a podcast about everything about indoor climbing, I'm not gonna know how to do it. I'm gonna need a guide, like someone to show me, like, actually how to place my hands, how to adjust my grips, how to, like, adjust my body weight to be more advantageous for different holds and stuff like that. So this is why I created a free healthy eating guide. It's available to be downloaded for free from my website. You can simply go to fitlifeblueprints.com/free resources, and you can find it. It's a PDF file. It has over probably 200 different products. Of course, they're separated by sections. You have proteins, carbs, fats, and fibers. You have a bit more information, written information about actually what they do to our body and why they're important. You also have different sources for each section. So you have a lot of different sources of proteins and carbs, and you have, for instance, the proteins, you have animal-based proteins, plant-based proteins, different sources, like where you can get them from. And the idea was to just create a guide that can be useful for someone who decides to try this kind of detox from fast food. So, like, if you're if you want to try to change your life, and if you want to go and like switch to a whole food diet, which is probably the best diet by far, like eating whatever your body needs and taking it from whole natural sources, you will need some sort of guide, because so far you wouldn't be like you wouldn't have this knowledge about those products and the sources. So this is why if I manage to convince you to try, just like stay away from all the packaged food, stay away from all the fast food, all the processed food, all the microwave meals, or pre-cooked pizzas or whatever. Like, get your food from whole natural sources which need to be cooked, like raw meat that needs to be cooked, fish, eggs, all stuff that needs to be cooked, no pre-cooked stuff. And if you're looking for a guide that can help you kind of like get the right types of food that you're looking for from the supermarket, feel free to download the guide. It's absolutely free, and I'm very confident that it's gonna help you for your journey. With that being said, if you like the information I provide you with, feel free to head over to fitlifeblueprints.com. There are way more free resources that you can enjoy and learn from. There's also a blog which you can enjoy if you prefer reading. There's quite a lot of blog posts, and I'm sure you can find some value in them. You can also check out my ebook. It's called The Blueprint of Health. It's available in Amazon. It's an ebook only, but if you're interested of learning not only about those 5 pillars of fit life, but actually 21 of them, you can head over and check it out. Like, also, like, let me know what you think. I think it's pretty important for me. If you want to work with me, there are spaces available. You can head over to online coaching in fitlifeblueprints.com online coaching. You can see the different plans available, and you can work with me. Like, I can be your guide, or I can be your online coach. We can work together, and I can teach you way more about food and way more about exercises. So if you're interested in this, head over and check it out. You can schedule a free call, and we can just talk about whatever you need to talk or you want to talk about with me. So I will be happy to help if I can. Thank you so much for that, guys, and I will see you next time. Thank you for tuning to Fit Life Radio. I hope you learned something useful, or at least had a bit of color to your commute. If you enjoyed the show, please share the love by introducing it to friends and family. And if you don't mind, please leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Thank you for your support, and until next time, stay fit.